guys? Welcome back to Rhythm Method Air. Today we're going to be talking about false accusations. Should a woman that falsely accused a man for sexual assault be criminally liable? That is such a tough question. Last month I pulled it on Facebook, and my friends list is by no means an accurate data sample, but I didn't post it to find out the popular opinion on the matter. I posted it to assess the interest in the subject matter, or if the verdict would be too obvious to cover because I thought it was obvious, but the pushback on my position was nuanced. I commented on a meme, and I had guys telling me I was an idiot and women liking my comment, but then I also had women telling me I was way off base, and I had men telling me I was dead on. So, who knows? Women who falsely accuse men of... Okay, so I'll just describe the meme that I saw and commented on. It said, women who falsely accuse men of rape should go to jail. And it was written like 100 times on a chalkboard, Bart Simpson style. And then below it said, like if you agree. That was the original post. And my first reactionary thought was, God, no. And my reason, my logic, that some found hilarious, is that we have no credibility in our judicial system. I don't trust our judicial system at all. I know the prosecutors and defenders play golf on Sundays with each other. I know they cut deals. I know they blow cases on a quid pro quo basis. And I know we live in a society where rape as a culture is acceptable on a certain level that pertains to class. Basically, whoever can afford the better attorney at a moment when the ball is in the defendant or the prosecutor's court determines who goes to jail in a rape case. Now this gets us to the part of the Constitution that says, quote, all suspects are considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Maybe that's not the Constitution. It might be some kind of Miranda bullshit. Either way, it's all fucking lip service coming from the government. It doesn't actually apply to your average Joe. Does that imply that if a woman presses rape charges against a man and she loses, that she has filed a, quote, false claim? I wouldn't think so. Not exactly. Her attorney may have just failed to convince a jury beyond reasonable doubt. Now what the fuck is reasonable in our newfangled carnival? That's a whole different ball of wax. And this issue has a lot of nuance to it. I know men who have been falsely accused, and I know women who have falsely accused for different reasons, but not really different reasons. They all have to do with culture. Culture and its ongoing war is ever present in my mind, if even at the back of it. There exists a lot of inconvenient data on the subject. And it's come to light in perfect timing for this revelatory age. Every karmic action is under the scrutiny or the microscope of definition. For example, define rape, define false, define accused. You see what I mean? We can't define what consent is. We can't distinguish alternate facts from lies. We can't distinguish accused from charged or alleged in the modern court of public opinion. I said something like, women already underreport rape. False accusations aren't the problem here. False rape accusations aren't a pandemic. If innocence is determined by who has access to the best legal representation, then we may as well just start calling ourselves Saudi America. Let's get to the core of this issue. Why is it a hot topic right now? Well, because our president is an accused and likely rapist, or at least a sexual assaulter, as subtle as a difference that there is. When he said, quote, I can't be investigated for my crimes while I'm still in office, he was referring to election tampering and not his sexual assault charges. But That makes little difference in this context. The reality is that he avoided rape charges by being elected president. Had he lost the election, he'd have faced those charges, allegations, accusations. But then what? Would he have just been tried and convicted? If so, then what? So was Jeffrey Epstein. So was Brock Turner. So were countless celebrities. The only rapist that was met with any kind of justice was Bill Cosby. And one of those criminals is not like the others. You see what I mean? Point is, we have Brock Turner and we have Emmett Till. We have Bill Cosby and then we have Donald Trump. Epstein is a little bit of a different kind of a deal because he could take a lot of powerful political leaders down with him. So, his case is exceptional. And that's the underlying issue. That's the crux of it. Should women who falsely accuse men of rape be legally prosecuted? Yes, but no. Yes, because the court shouldn't be a weapon for one individual to exact an act of injustice upon another. And that's obvious. And no, and it's a hard no, because the false accusations aren't a staple of our culture. Whether or not you accept or acknowledge that we have a rape culture in our culture, in our society. The rape culture, the right tell us, doesn't actually exist because rape is technically a crime. Technically. Because it's enforced and meted out in accordance with our affluence. Trump was convinced the Central Park Five were guilty of rape and called for their execution. Is that a false accusation? I'd say it is. All 5 of them were exonerated per DNA evidence. Should Trump be brought up on false accusations? The woman who was raped also falsely accused those 5 young black teenagers. Should she be in jail? Obviously, she shouldn't be charged with false accusations simply because she was wrong about who raped her. Those kids suffered tremendously because of her false accusations. Should she be punished? That's never really the issue when it comes to false allegations against black men, though, right? See how nuanced this issue can be? Because nothing exists in a vacuum. I'd wager to bet that every dumbass calling for the criminal prosecution of false rape accusers didn't think about that shit when they opened their mouths about how women need to be held accountable, because it's never really about accountability with these motherfuckers. It never is. I don't toss and turn at night because I think a woman will falsely accuse me of sexual misconduct. I'm not virtue signaling like some of you think I am. I'm a recovering asshole. I told you that. I've acted inappropriately in the past. If you have a dick, it's likely been somewhere where it didn't belong at some point in your life. And this isn't a confessional, I'm telling you. I was the young owner of a penis, and I didn't know where the lines were because I was oblivious and insensitive to the experiences of other people in my younger years. I've done some really stupid shit that I'm not proud of in a myriad of facets. And those actions never defined me, though, because when I'm wrong, I listen and acknowledge and do my best to atone for it, okay? When you're a young dude, you just kind of act like a fucking animal sometimes. And I'm not even talking about in a predatory way. It's just guys being guys. And that's not an excuse. I'm not trying to say that it is. What I'm saying is that that's the reality of how men act around one another. And once in a while, men will be acting like men around, or boys, or whatever the fuck. And in their own minds, it's acceptable behavior. They're kind of just pushing the boundaries of that fucking sexual dynamic. And there's no malevolence, there's no maliciousness intended, and young guys are just oblivious. And that's how you change that behavior. It isn't by shaming them, it's by educating and informing them. Now, what would I do in the event that I'm Me Too'd? Well, personally, I'd say I'm sorry, and it's unfortunate that you had to be my lesson. All I can offer is my most sincere apology, should you choose to accept that. Fortunately enough for me, nobody has ever felt compelled to make an example of me. At least not yet. Uh, I'm not. I'm not pontificating to you from some sanctimonious place of judgment. Not usually, unless you refuse to learn. Now, why would anybody refuse to learn? Pride, obviously, an unwillingness to relate with the bully aspect of others, an unwillingness to forgive, to let go, and to submit. It's got to be genuine, though. I wasn't ever held accountable for my sins, but I'm still sorry I committed them. They're sins because they were errors. It has very little, if anything, to do with morals. I don't think typical Christians truly understand the concept of original sin or forgiveness. Here's the unbearable element of it. You don't get to be sorry enough to ever deserve forgiveness. That's not up for you to decide when you've suffered sufficiently for your sins. We're punished by our sins, not necessarily for them. If you're a human of good conscience, in my experience, we are far more punished by our sins than for them. Assuming you're not a psychopath or a Christian, because Christianity is in the unfortunate business of paying for sins with credits they don't have. And that's the most dubious, duplicitous aspect of Christianity, as it's believed and not understood in Western culture. A culture predicated on rape, slavery, and war. All definitively evil by the standards of modernity, and preserved by the conservative mentality. A mentality that is largely informed by the chemical mental reactions fear evokes. I'm off subject again. Should women be criminally prosecuted for false rape allegations? I don't know. Are you comfortable living in Saudi America? Or do we live in a culture of false allegations? Which problematic pandemic issue is more pervasive where you live? How many women do you personally know that have experienced some kind of sexual abuse or harassment? Now let me ask you this. How many men do you know that have been falsely accused that have suffered appropriate reprisal? I'm confident if we learn to navigate these delicate steps, false accusations won't be an issue to contend with on a societal level. And let me ask you, let's say you have a daughter. Are you afraid to send her to college for fear she might be sexually assaulted? What measures do you take to ensure that won't happen? What about your sons? Are you afraid they might be falsely accused? What measures have you taken to ensure your son won't be falsely accused? What measures have you taken to ensure those allegations won't be false? Is a better question. You see the cultural disparity? If not, and if you are a man, ask yourself this question in this scenario. Your daughter brings home a man that's just like you. Are you happy about it? Are you happy about your daughter's decision? If you're not, then you need to change. If you're worried your little girl might bring home a man that might be something like you are, you're the problem. It's that, quote, men are all the same and you know how they are, unquote. That's the problem. It's that you think all men are as fucked up and disgusting as you are because you have no reference to what a good man is. Because you aren't one. And because you aren't one, you refuse to believe they exist. Because you think you are one. And you're not. I'm reading responses to this Facebook poll, and my view is not the popular one. Okay, when I chimed in on the topic, I was met with some serious pushback, and I thought, this is actually a polarized topic because I'm finding myself in conflict with precisely who I wouldn't expect to be in conflict with here. So I have to ask myself, why? And there are good, solid, legitimate reasons that I don't think are accurate. It's possible I'm missing something crucial. Not just possible, likely. Not even just likely, inevitably. I'm likely wrong. Occam's razor would suggest as much. I still don't think I am, though. I trust my wrong ass self more than the righteousness of the other, generally. And time will tell. Cronus is a lot of things, but a liar, no. Consistency over time is what eventually takes serial abusers out of society. I encourage women to report. Trump has 22 sexual assault charges waiting for him after he's removed from office, and he won't be removed willfully. And this is what the DNC did to us by undermining democracy. They forced good people of conscience to vote for a Green Party candidate or a Libertarian candidate, and to these simpletons, a Green vote is a vote for Trump. Then Kavanaugh, the whole hashtag #MeToo movement, for lack of a better term. All of this shit is a symptom of a greater societal failure. Is it a failure? Or is it just time for change? You know, we look at things wrong. Why is it a failure just because it collapsed? You look at a romantic relationship, divorced after 25 years. People say, what a shame. Why is that a shame? Yeah, they're painful. You know, but every successful relationship doesn't need to end with one of you in a coffin. Where's the failure? It's at the root of it. And I've been trying to get this simple shit through the young male conservative skull for as long as I can remember. Women are people and deserve human rights. Write that 100 times on a chalkboard. Are women absolved of any kind of responsibility for shitty behavior in society? Of course not. They should definitely be held accountable. I don't like to tell anecdotes on this channel, but in this case I will. I have 3 instances where I know a false accusation was intentionally made. One of them led to a criminal investigation and ended up with someone doing prison time for something he didn't do. Now, this story terrifies me because I was in the clutches of a seriously malignant human being, okay? She was damaged. She was seriously fucked up from some kind of trauma. But she seemed well put together. I met her on MySpace. I chatted her up. We met a couple times for coffee or a cocktail. We walked around the park a few times. Always in public, never alone. It was casual. I'd been talking with her online and hanging out periodically with her for about 5 years at that point. You know, we met online in 2003. And in 2008, we went on an actual date. Had a fantastic time. Next weekend, another fantastic day. Went out on a Friday. The following Saturday morning, she makes me coffee, and we're both completely sober. And she gets this Kubrick stare, you know the one, psychotic. Tilted forward head, lower jaw extended, eyes fixed, looking right through you. So she starts saying this really weird shit to me, asking me if I'm an abuser. Which I didn't know where this shit was coming from. You know, she looked me straight in the eye and told me not to fuck with her. And I'm trying to be sympathetic because I can tell by now that this woman is emotionally fucked up. And she told me that the last guy she really loved hurt her. And I'm like, did he beat you? And she's like, no. He never beat me, but he cheated on me. And I'm like, oh, okay. We're 2 weeks into a dating relationship and she's giving me this fucking loyalty, monogamy talk. So I hear her out and I tell her, look, man, I'm sorry your last boyfriend lied to you, and I assured her that I wouldn't lie to her. And, that's a pretty easy promise for me to make. She seemed relieved by it, and then she told me that would be the best, in my best interest, because of what she did to her ex-boyfriend, to repay him back for his cheating. I'm like, what'd you do? She straight-faced told me, I got on his computer and pretended to be him. And I would try to solicit young people into sex with me. And I downloaded a shitload of child porn on his computer. And the worst kind that would make a normal person vomit. And then I reported him to the police. And he's in prison now because he put his dick where it didn't belong. And I'm sitting there just fucking shocked by what this woman is telling me. I didn't know what to say. You know, I knew I didn't want anything to do with this woman at that point. I was going through my head trying to think of any kind of DNA evidence I may have left in her apartment, because I was never going to date this woman again. And I could tell that after 2 weeks, she was ready to get nice and committed, and I think she should be committed to a psych ward and never to another human being in a relationship of any kind. I don't think to, I don't think to ask his name, and I never saw her in person again. But she stalked me for 3 months, and she would try to break up my relationship with who she perceived as my girlfriend, but was actually my cousin. She was threatening my family. Had she known more about me than she could have found out online or in 2 weeks, it could have been even worse. It could have been even scarier. And she didn't know where I lived. If she had, she may have figured out a way to kill me or frame me or something fucking terrible like that. And I understand, sex is some crazy shit. It makes people do crazy shit, like start a family or murder their family. And people lie about it all the time. So the other instance, the next instance of a false allegation was your typical he said, she said shit. She told me she cheated, and then she said it was rape. He told me they got busted in some consensual shit, and she said it was rape. Once my then girlfriend told me she was raped, and I'm not positive she wasn't lying to me. In fact, that's happened more than a few times. This is a feature of our culture. In its extremes, a woman can be capitally punished for being raped. Think Saudi Arabia. They solved their rape culture by declaring open season on women. Now, this is how I imagine they sell it. You don't think it can happen here. It can. And this is how we get Handmaid's Tale dystopias. Because women can cheat and lie and say it was rape to spare their reputation and honor, men decided that a woman cannot be alone for the protection of her honor and her safety. In those cultures, rape isn't a crime. Being raped is. So a woman must never be alone without the company of a male family member. That's barbaric to us in our civilized Western culture, right? So what happens if a woman files rape charges against a man and he's tried and found to be not guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt? Then she's charged with a false accusation? What does that do to our society? Rape is already underreported. It's already open season for rapists on certain members of our society that don't have access to legal protection. If you're poor or undocumented or just don't believe you can get a fair trial for whatever reason, depending on who your assailant is. Say your assailant's the son of a judge or a cop, then you don't file charges and rape becomes even more pandemic than it already is. That's what I hear coming from the conservative annals of the internet. Women need to take responsibility for their own selves and safety and fucking blah blah blah. Women should be armed to defend themselves against rapists. This dude I was arguing with told me that's why I encourage the women I know to conceal carry. That would not prevent 99% of the rapes that occur. Also, you might end up in prison for defending yourself. That happens more than it should. So, what's the clearest, most rational solution to our rape/false accusation culture problem? I seriously don't see false accusations being a problem unless I'm concerned that my favorite politician might be put out of a job by a, quote, false accusation. Because that's really what all this attention on this subject is coming from. I'm not that guy, so that's not my problem. My solution wouldn't be received well by these assholes anyway, ironically, because it involves education. They don't like education because it tends to turn their voter base against them. A lot of liberals give Mike Pence a ration of shit because he protects his reputation for not being a rapist by never putting himself in a position where he can be accused without a witness. Now, if you shame him for that, shame on you. There are plenty of good reasons to shame him that don't have anything to do with his reluctance to trust women or to do what's in his mind eases the anxiety of his mother. And by that, I mean his wife, who he refers to as mother. Because politicians, like rock stars, find themselves with women throwing themselves at them. Subsequently, they are subject to false accusations by unscrupulous women who might use their guile to avoid the trappings of capitalism, like Melania Trump. They don't want to work a shit job for slave wages, and they see barnacling on to your dumb, rich ass as a way out of that shitty situation. That's what we're talking about when we talk about hypergamy. You're going to have your Melania Trumps who marry below their physical standard to acquire wealth and luxury and leisure and to avoid work. You know, you seen her lately? How's that working out for her? Is she happy? Do you think Trump's happy? Yeah, he's happy as a pig in shit. No, he's miserable. Just like the gullible folks who thought he was going to solve their problems. All he offers are excuses. These people, they're hopeless if he was their hope. If you know this, you know, and if you don't, well, I don't know what to tell you. Just that being stupid and uninformed or misinformed is a choice in the age of information, you know, like slavery wasn't. Kanye. Who controls Trump? What drives him? What motivates him? Sex? Power? Fear? Yeah. Those are the primary motivators for most people. That's why we're so paranoid of one another. We know what we'd do to us if we were them because that's what we do to them. You know, do unto others before they would do unto you, right? It's not exactly Christian, but it's also not exactly specifically human. It's cultural. And the culture wasn't Christian until they effectively removed the Christ from the Christianity. See what I mean? So let's think about the way things are set up now and what will be the unlikely unintended consequences of jailing women who make false accusations, if that includes failing to convict her assailant. Do you want that? Do you think Kathy Blasey Ford should be in prison? How many credible accusers should it take to put a man in prison for rape? Should a false accusation be a longer or shorter sentence than Brock Turner received? Should it be as severe as Jeffrey Epstein's? You know, on work release for 16 hours a day? He was raping little girls while he was in prison. To me, that seems to be a bigger issue. So, my long answer is no. Women shouldn't face criminal prosecution on top of all the other social and legal obstacles, barriers to keep them from reporting sexual assault. What about my internet stalker? I don't think that was a false accusation. She actively framed that dude. She set him up in a calculated and meticulous way. That wasn't an accusation that a jury determined was false. As far as I know, that dude served or is still serving a prison stint for something he didn't commit. Should she be in prison for that? Yeah, absolutely. That's more than a false accusation. Here's the thing. She may have been lying to me. I don't know for certain if she actually did that because she wouldn't tell me his name. Because I was going to report what she had told me to his judge and attorney and find him. I couldn't verify what she told me. I believed her though because she was a psychopath. That's not generally who we are. That's generally not who we're talking about when we say, quote, women who make false rape allegations should go to jail, though. Nobody should be making false allegations against anyone for any reason. But how do we determine what constitutes a false accusation? You know, how do you prove that? You can't. So we need to restructure society, or we need to be conscientious about who we put ourselves into compromising situations with, and or both. Something to think about. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to those of you who have hit that subscribe icon. See you next week.